Week 12's here, which means it's time for us to get ready for our fantasy football playoffs, which are just around the corner. It's time to start priming for those playoffs. Get ready right now. We have week 11, which is just about finished. Monday Night Football is pending right now, so I don't have those final stats. But your top five on the week is CMC, Sean Tucker, Travion Henderson, Bijan Robinson, and Kenny Gainwell. The surprise finishes there, Sean Tucker and Kenny Gainwell, along with Devin Singletary and Ty Johnson, all found their way inside of the top 24. Some surprise there. Some duds on the week included Vidal and Jacobs, both of who got injured in their games. We'll see what happens with their availability as we go forward. We also have Judkins, who is kind of a dud on the week. The injuries are going to be big. We also have J.K. Dobbins, who hits IR. We're going to have to deal with Ramondre Stevenson continues. Maybe the breakout for Travion is going to last through these playoffs. Huge news at the running back position. Looking forward to week 12 now, we've got the Denver Broncos, the Chargers, the Dolphins, and the Commanders all hitting the bye week. So it's time for us to dive into our top 24 running backs on the week and get into some streaming options right here on the Face Off Sports Network. And when we get to our top 24, as always, this first tier is going to feature names that have been consistent for the last couple of weeks. But of course, the fantasy finishes were really strong with this group this past week. We start off with Jonathan Taylor, Jahmyr Gibbs, Christian McCaffrey, Bijan Robinson, Travion Henderson, and Rico Dowdle. So starting off with Jonathan Taylor, he gets to take on the Kansas City Chiefs this upcoming weekend. The matchup isn't great. Kansas City is pretty good against the running backs, but it's Jonathan Taylor, and I'm not moving him from the one spot because right now he is so dominant. He's done absolutely everything you can ask. He's top 10 in literally every running back category. So he's going to be a guy that remains there for me right now. So no panic, no fear for me. Now, Jahmyr Gibbs, I understand not his best week. He still played okay. A lot of that comes down to the receiving work that he got. When we step back and look at the game against the Eagles that happened last night, 12 carries for 39 yards, average 3.3 a clip. Not great, but it's the 8 targets, 5 catches for 107 yards. Absolutely fantastic, which got him up to 19 points on the fantasy week. So I'm really comfortable with Jahmyr Gibbs. He also has a great matchup taking on the Giants, who are giving up a ton of points to the running back position right now. So the matchup leads to him. I think he bounced back. I think the Lions will bounce back as a whole, get a win. I expect them to just ground and pound and get back to what they do so well. Now, Christian McCaffrey, our running back 1 on the week, is running back 3 for me. He's been so good, man. There's not much you can really say. Gets to take on the Carolina Panthers, so kind of a revenge matchup, although I don't think there's bad blood there. 13 attempts for him, 81 yards on the ground, average 6.2 per carry, had 2 touchdowns, got a really early touchdown, like second play of the game. He gets to get a goal line carry. It was great for him. Added 5 catches on 6 targets for 40 yards and a touchdown. Dude's just an absolute beast right now. So I love using him in DFS. Despite how expensive he is, he pays off. Bijan Robinson at my running back 4 here gets to take on the New Orleans Saints. So I like that matchup there. We'll see what happens with this Saints game. Yes, the Falcons, injury to Michael Penix, injury to Drake London maybe. I think London's going to be fine. We'll see what happens if they want to hold him out for a little bit. Their season's kind of already over. This could be a game where Bijan gets a ton of workload. I mean, the Falcons are kind of out of the playoff race at this point. He had 23 carries for 114 yards and 2 touchdowns, added 4 catches for 39 yards, had 30.3 points on the week. So another monster finish for Bijan, but there's a lot of question marks around what this Falcons offense is going to do going forward, especially with the news at quarterback having an injury and their star wide receiver. So I think Bijan might get a big workload. Maybe they use, Tyler Algier to spell him a little bit. We'll see what happens. So I like Bijan. I just am kind of a little frustrated, a little scared of what might happen with this team going forward. But let's talk about Travion Henderson, which, man, another monster week for him. 19 carries, 62 yards, added 2 touchdowns with 5 catches for 31 yards and a touchdown. So 3 touchdowns on the week, 32.3 points, got him to finish as the RB3 on the week, a monster week. But it just gets better for him. I don't think Ramondre Stevenson is going to play. He's earned this role. It's going to be his to lose. I think they're going to continue to feed him because he's been an absolute playmaker for this offense right now. And he gets to take on the Cincinnati Bengals, which, as we've discussed every single week, They give up the most points to the running back position, and they did it again this week where, you had Jaylen Warren, who had another great game. Kenny Gainwell had a big game too. He winds up as your running back 5 on the week. So I expect big things for Travion Henderson. He's going to be inside of my top 5 on the week. Really excited for that matchup. And closing out tier 1 here, let's get to Rico Dowdle, just the consistent hero of fantasy right now, taking on the San Francisco 49ers. So a little bit of a tougher matchup on Monday night. All that to say, he's going to get the volume. He's going to get the workload. 19 carries for 45 yards, added 5 catches for 55 yards to get him 15 points. No, he didn't score, but he's doing just enough to stay involved where he doesn't need the touchdown. He's getting the ball enough. He's really efficient with the ball in his hands. So I expect Rico Dowdle to continue to be a guy who can really produce for our fantasy lineups, especially when we hit the crunch time right now. Now, there was an injury to Bryce Young. He came back into the game. The Panthers are fighting for a position, so these games matter to them. So I think they're going to use Rico Dowdle as much as they can to, keep trying to get that edge, because him and that offensive line, I've said it a couple times, they work in conjunction so well together. So I love seeing that for Rico. I think he's going to be a solid play, but I could easily see him falling outside of the top 12, but I think he's got the volume to kind of earn this tier 1, given the fact he's shown it so many times making big play after big play. But let's get to tier 2 here, and let's start with Saquon Barkley, James Cook, Derrick Henry, Javonte Williams, Kyron Williams, and Quinshon Judkins. Now, starting off this tier here, we've got Saquon Barkley, which I understand another ho-hum week for him. The Eagles offense did not look that good last night, but at the same time, I'm not going to really be too concerned about Saquon and this offense. Now, I get the passing attack is one thing, but the run game is totally different. Yes, there's injuries to the offensive line. Saquon had 26 carries for 83 yards, added 1 catch for 7 yards. The important thing for me here is the 26 attempts. They were getting back to getting him the ball. Now, you could say, hey, Matt, I get it, but at the same time, only 83 yards. He averaged just over 3 yards a carry. Well, I also want to reinforce the fact that the Detroit Lions are a really good defense. They're the number 1 defense against running backs. So I kind of expect that. I didn't think it was bad for him to have a ho-hum day where he only gets 10 points, but the volume is there. What we know is that this Eagles team has to get back to running the ball. And for me, it was nice to see them hand him the ball 26 times, because it felt at the end of the game, he was so close to breaking a big one, and it just felt like everyone was on the edge of their seat just waiting for it to happen. So I like that. He gets to take on Dallas. We'll see what happens with that defense tonight. They're taking on the Raiders, so I don't have any information on that, but I'm going to be playing Saquon Barkley comfortably, and I understand a lot of people are going to fight him being in this position, but I think he's going to be a solid play. And carrying on to James Cook, another interesting play. I mean, Josh Allen is just simply stealing touchdowns right now. It's not even fair. And I get it. James Cook had 20 points on the week, so he was just fine. 16 carries for 48 yards, added 3 catches for 66 yards and a touchdown. James Cook is just so dang good right now. He had a couple bad weeks, but the offense is rolling in Buffalo. They do take on the Houston Texans, who are pretty stout against the running back. So that's going to be something to monitor and to watch there. But again, James Cook is one of those guys, you're not benching him for anyone. So absolutely play him. He's playing on Thursday night, so be sure to put him in your running back spot, not your flex positions. And we carry on here, and let's get to Derrick Henry, my RB9 on the week. A lot of people talked about how they can't trust him. It was nice to see it finally come together for Derrick Henry. 18 carries for 103 yards and a touchdown, 2 catches for 19 yards. I said it last week, the touchdown was coming. I could feel it. He also had a big play that he broke down the field. So you love to see it from Derrick Henry. I mean, this Baltimore team is red hot right now. They've started, 1-5 or whatever it was, and they've won 4 straight. So they're now 500. So I think they're a team to watch as we move forward. They're really, really lethal running the ball. I mean, the combo of Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson can be so dangerous. So I'm going to continue to play Derrick Henry. He gets to take on the Jets. Jets giving up a little more points to the running back position. I mean, we saw them get absolutely destroyed by Travion this past week. They moved 2 guys right at the trade deadline, and it's kind of starting to show up. So I'm going to start Derrick Henry with confidence. I'm going to be playing him if he's on my team. And let's get to my next running back here, which is Javonte Williams. Like I said, recording this right now during Monday Night Football, so I don't have any stats for Javonte. He does take on the Eagles. That defense is really stout. We saw what they did to the Lions running back unit, but that to be said, Javonte and this offense are hot. It's a divisional game. You just simply never know what can happen. So I'm going to continue to play Javonte because he's earned that right. He's going to get the volume. He's going to get the workload. So I think he's going to get 15 to 20 opportunities. And I'm going to trust that offense that, maybe he finds his way in the end zone or he gets enough points to be fantasy relevant and finish inside of the top 24. Moving on to Kyren Williams, running back taking on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. What started out as a stout defense at the beginning of the year has kind of turned into a defense allowing more points to the running back position over the last few weeks. So that's interesting to me. That's a Sunday night game. Kyren last week, 12 carries for 91 yards and a touchdown, added 1 catch for 5 yards, 16.6 points on the week. We were talking earlier in the year how it was surprising to see the involvement from Kyren Williams in the pass game. That's kind of regressing a little bit. They're giving him the ball more. The Rams are just so good right now. That's all you can say is the offense is really, really efficient. You're going to continue to play Kyren Williams. He's going to be a guy that can get you the touchdown. I think he's a safe guy to get, between 12 to 16 points each week. Could he not get the touchdown and end up with 8 or 7? Absolutely. But I'm going to bet on the Rams offense. I think he's a solid RB1 right now. Just so slept on. I say it every single week, but can't say enough about him for being a guy that you can absolutely trust in your fantasy lineup. And to close out tier 2 for me is going to be Quinshon Judkins. Not the best week for him, but he does get to take on the Las Vegas Raiders this upcoming week. The volume remains there for Judkins. It's just the offense is something you can't trust. Whether it's Shador, whether it's Dylan Gabriel, I don't know. We don't have any injury news just yet. But what I do know is that Quinshon Judkins is going to get, 15 plus carries and 2 to 5 targets no matter what. And I get this week was kind of your worst case scenario, 17 carries for 59 yards, average 3.5 per carry, and he ends up with 5.9 points. No catches, but he did have 2 targets. I'm going to trust Quinshon, man. I'm telling you, the big play is there. If he makes it, he can absolutely flip this, turn that 6 points into 12 to 15 points. So trust the player, trust the matchup against the Raiders. I like where he's going. And getting into my tier 3, we're going to start off with a couple tough matchups and kind of break down this tier here. We've got Ashton Genty, Chase Brown, Travis Etienne, Aaron Jones, Jaylen Warren, and DeAndre Swift. Now, starting off with Ashton Genty, again, like I said, he's playing in Monday Night Football, so I don't have any stats to give you as to what he's done against the Dallas Cowboys, but it falls back to what I've said a lot this year is Ashton Genty is just the guy that's going to get the workload. The offense is just something you can't trust. Now, he does take on the Cleveland Browns, which is a really stout defense, very good against the run. So I would manage my expectations with any Ashton Genty play that I have, which is kind of why I've moved him into tier 3, not in that tier 2 where he's been the last couple of weeks. I think that, he's just someone that you can trust to get you, 5 points, but there's a good chance that he could max out at 7. Now, I think he's a better player than that. He's just like Judkins and where he can make one big play and all things change. But at the same time, I think that this offense is just frankly so handicapped. It's got to run through him. It's got to run through Brock Bowers. And I just see it being a low scoring game against Cleveland. But carrying on here, let's get to my tier 3 here. And we've got Chase Brown, who gets to take on the New England Patriots. Another tough matchup for him, but he's coming off a solid week against the Steelers where he had 18 attempts for 99 yards, average 5.5 yards there. You love to see that. Added 6 catches on 8 targets for 28 yards. He's just the volume guy. I mean, this offense is going to go as him. They're trying to score a ton of points right now. So I think that, Chase Brown is someone that I'm comfortable starting if I have him. But I'm also going to manage my expectations against this New England front 7, who's been really strong this season. So you can't say enough about what they've done and what Drake May's doing right now on offense. I know we're talking about the running backs right now, but there's a world where they can just kind of run out the clock and kind of limit the opportunities for that Bengals offense. But moving right along, we've got Travis Etienne, who, another solid week for him, kind of being slept on right now. He's staying in tier 3. Probably a good argument to move him up over a guy like Quinshon Judkins or a guy like Ashton Genty, who has a tough matchup. Coming off a week where he had 19 carries for, 19 carries for 73 yards. Added 2 targets there. No catches, but he did have the 2 touchdowns, which got him to 19.3 points. So you love to see that for Travis Etienne. This game against it's just one of those things where it got so out of hand so fast with the Jaguars. It was never even close with the Chargers. Now, there was some Charger injuries that kind of certainly played a role into what happened. So we'll see what happens with those guys, but more on that in a little bit. But I do think that we need to be starting Travis Etienne with some level of confidence because they're giving him enough volume and enough opportunity. Now, I said it earlier in the year, Bashal Tutin is eating into that workload at least a little bit. And he's been very efficient with the ball in his hands and did find his way in the end zone too, early, not when it was a blowout. So I like the Jaguars enough that they're giving Etienne some workload and you can put him in your lineup, but I just don't think he's the guy you can trust as your RB1 right now. And carrying on in tier 3, we've got Aaron Jones, who's just the most efficient guy with the ball in his hands. Absolutely love what he does. He gets to take on the Green Bay Packers, who are an inconsistent defense at times. So that is worth noting. But Aaron Jones coming off a week where he had 16 carries for 70 yards, added 3 catches on 6 targets for 11 yards, 11.1 points on the week. Could have easily been a better week for him. The Vikings offense will go as J.J. McCarthy goes. Right now, that's not very far. They need to get better on that end. They're playing in the games, not starting out hot and getting in too late. J.J. missed some easy throws, but he did get burned by some bad drops too. I mean, it's a lot like what we've talked about with Trevor Lawrence in past shows where, the young quarterback needs help from the wide receivers. Addison had a big play that he dropped early in the second quarter. That hurt this team. So I like Aaron Jones just given the fact that he's someone that this offense trusts. He's going to get 15 to 20 opportunities, and he's extremely efficient with the ball in his hands. So I'm going to play him if I have him. He's a great flex option if you can use that route. Or as an RB2, you could certainly do worse. So I'm going to play him with confidence. Jaylen Warren is going to be my next guy here. You could say, hey, Matt, we're coming off a week where Kenny Gainwell was a top 5 back. Totally understand that. Jaylen Warren, did he have the best week? No. I mean, 10 carries for 62 yards, 6.2 a clip there, added 2 catches for 5 yards, but Kenny Gainwell got the touchdowns. That's something that I think I even mentioned on my last show that this might be the week that Kenny Gainwell gets the touchdowns against the Cincinnati Bengals just because, they give up so many points. So I think that Jaylen Warren has proven he's the guy. I mean, he had more carries than Gainwell, so don't read into that too much. I think that he's going to continue to get the opportunity. The offense trusts him just enough. So I like Jaylen Warren. He's just an RB2 or a back-end RB2, willing to flex him, but I don't want to rely on him as my RB1 if I don't have to. In closing out this tier, I've got DeAndre Swift, who gets to take on the Steelers. Gave up a decent amount of fantasy points to the running back position. Coming off a week where he had 21 carries for 90 yards, added just 1 target, no catches. Got 9 points on the week. Certainly could do better. Kyle Monangai ended up getting the touchdown. This team's going to continue to use him. I've talked about how Monangai is the hammer in this offense. They want to have 2 running backs. Ben Johnson is absolutely cooking right now. They're continuing to win. They're continuing to find ways to get better all around. So I think that DeAndre Swift is just the benefactor of that. He's the best running back of the group. While I do think Monangai is serviceable and is going to continue to get a workload because he's earned it as the hammer, Swift is a guy they're going to use out of backfield, and they're going to give him 15 to 20 carries just because they run the ball so much. But let's get to my final tier here, where we're going to start off with Bucky Irving, Breece Hall, Kareem Hunt, Tyrone Tracy, Woody Marks, and David Montgomery. Now let's start with the obvious. Bucky Irving. Is he back? I don't know. This is speculative. I think he's closer. He was in practice last week. Yes, Sean Tucker had the big week. Rachaad White has been inefficient. I think that Bucky Irving is going to have to come back at some point. They are playing in LA against the Rams Sunday night. So, maybe this is the opportunity to bring him back into the fold and give him some workload. Is he going to be on the snap count? All that is something we're going to have to monitor as we move forward through the week. So that's why I have him here at the start of tier 4. If I knew he was playing and I knew he was going to get a perfect workload with no restrictions, I'd probably move him up into tier 2. That's how good of a player I personally believe Bucky Irving is. But all that to say is there's just so much unknown right now. So be sure to join the Discord. You can fire in your questions there. We give updates to our rankings in the Discord exclusively, so you can check that out. And I will be answering questions about Bucky Irving all week, I'm sure. But let's carry right along and let's get to our next running back here. And that's going to be Breece Hall. Another week for him where he gets the opportunity, just not the most efficient player. 8.4 points on the week, 14 carries for 58 yards, added 2 catches for 6 yards. So we've talked about it a lot this season, that Breece Hall, all the talent in the world, the Jets offense, just frankly not that good. Now, it's worth noting there's been a rumor, or actually a report at this point, that the Jets are going to move on from Justin Fields, and Tyrod Taylor is actually going to be given the start this week. So does that help Breece Hall? Maybe a little. I mean, frankly, Justin Fields cannot throw the ball at all, whether efficiently or inefficiently. He doesn't throw it. He runs a lot, and that's great for fantasy, but he's so inconsistent. You can't trust him or this Jets offense with him at the helm. Tyrod Taylor might give some more stability, maybe some more check down opportunities for Brees Hall, who we know is someone who's really efficient when the ball gets in his hands, especially out of the backfield. I mean, he's been a target leader at the running back positions for the last couple of years. So I think it's good things for Brees Hall, probably more so than not. But we carry right along, and let's get to Kareem Hunt, the RB21 for me, gets to take on the Indianapolis Colts. Tough matchup there, coming off a week where he had 13 carries for 59 yards and a touchdown, averaged 4.5 yards per carry, and added a catch for 3 yards. A lot of this is going to come down to the injury, too. We've seen Pacheco be out. Will he come back? I don't know, but I do know this, that Kareem Hunt is a desperation flex. I've said it all year. If I need someone, he's the guy. Go grab off waivers just because they trust him. He falls in the end zone, and you end up with a week like this past week where he gets 13.2 points. You could absolutely do worse than that. So I think Kareem Hunt is a great play if you have to. I get the matchup's tough, but I think the Chiefs know they need to win, know they're going to have to come in. I mean, they're coming off a loss to the Broncos. It's every week is do or die for them at this point. And let's carry right along. Let's get to Tyrone Tracy, who's my running back 22. I know a lot of people did not like that I had him in the top 24. Some people over on Reddit that I was discussing with didn't see the value in Tracy, and Tracy ended up having a very solid week. Yes, Singletary was okay as well, finishing inside of the top 24. But Tyrone Tracy had 19 carries for 88 yards and 4.6 yards per carry, added 4 catches for 51 yards to get 17.9 points on the week. So pretty good week for him. Downside is he takes on the Detroit Lions, which that team is so stout the running back or stopping the running back position. So I would manage my expectations with this Giants offense. We'll see if Jackson Dart comes back. I'm not sure if it's a good thing or a bad thing, to be honest. I don't think it matters. Really, the matchup is tough. So I think he's a low-end RB2 or a flex play. Don't use him if you don't have to. I mean, there's a lot of these other guys that are kind of floating out there that you could start over him, and I would understand why. I mean, Kenneth Walker is out there, and, he's not even inside the top 24, and he's still a guy that's making plays between the 20s, just not getting in the end zone. But enough about Kenneth Walker. Let's get to Woody Marks here, who gets to take on the Buffalo Bills, surprisingly giving up a lot of points to the running back position. I get the Bills score a ton of points, but they also give up points as well. Woody Marks had 18 carries for 44 yards, not very efficient at all, added a catch for 7 yards. He's going to be a guy that continues to live and die off finding his way in the end zone and making explosive plays. Davis Mills at the helm is not a good thing for this Texans offense. We'll see if CJ Stroud comes back this week. I think he will. Kept him out maybe as another week of precaution. They scraped out the win against the Titans. So I think it's going to be better days ahead for Woody Marks than the 6-point game he had this past week. But he remains a low-end RB2. I said last week a lot of people wanted to put him in the top 24. I said you cannot trust him. And guess what? He was a dud. So that's something we need to keep in the back of our mind as we move forward. The offense and him are just not stable enough. And to close out my tier 4, I've got David Montgomery. Again, I understand people are going to be frustrated with this. Only 4.7 points on the week. He's going to live and die by that touchdown. I'm going to stand by that. 6 carries for 27 yards, 4.5 a clip. That's great. But frankly, this Detroit team got shut down by Philly last night. So you have to kind of take that into account. They take on the Giants. I said it earlier, one of the worst teams against the running back. I think they're the 3rd worst overall. So I think Jahmyr Gibbs can score and eat just like David Montgomery can score and eat. So I think that he's going to be another guy that could be a solid RB2 play. Hopefully he falls in the end zone. Hopefully he gets enough opportunity to give you enough fancy points if you do have to play him. But all that to say, let's talk about some streaming options as we move forward. I mean, we've got the news with Vidal being hurt, but the Chargers are on bye this week. I said it a couple weeks ago. I think Hampton will come back after the bye. So week 13, I'd expect Hampton to be back in the lineup. Maybe Vidal something, maybe he's not. We'll see there. Josh Jacobs getting hurt. Didn't look to be season ending, but it is something to monitor to see what happens with him, which brings us to, a guy like Emmanuel Wilson, who had a solid opportunity share for him. I mean, he's available in almost all leagues out there, only rostered in 13%, had 11 carries for 40 yards and a touchdown in his limited opportunity. So he stepped into the role. He performed for this Packers offense. Yes, they can be inconsistent at times, but what we know is that they love to run the ball. So I think if he ends up playing, he's a guy that you absolutely have to go get off the waivers right now. I'd be willing to dump a ton of fab on him, especially if this news with Josh Jacobs looks like it might be something that could linger for 2 to 3 weeks. Now we're talking about our fantasy football playoff push. So he's absolutely a name that you could use and could step into your lineup and rely on. Kenny Gainwell's another name. I know I talked about how I'd rather play Jaylen Warren, but Gainwell is someone that's getting opportunity. It's a little bit less than Jaylen Warren, but he remains out there for about 30 to 40% of the snaps. If he gets hot, you could absolutely do worse. Again, the Kansas City running back, Kareem Hunt, he's out there in some leagues, so he's another name that I would be looking to or monitoring if I could find a way to get him on my roster. I think you could do worse. And, to be quite honest, he's someone that I'm going to trust to get a touchdown. Chris Rodriguez available in about 70% of leagues, coming off a game where he had another solid outing, 15 carries for 79 yards, added a catch for 6 yards. He didn't get the touchdown, so only 9 points on the week, but definitely someone who's getting the opportunity and getting the workload. But the Commanders team is on bye this week, so you can't rely on him. Bashal Tutin, available in about 75% of leagues, continues to be involved in this offense. They use him around the goal line. Only 32% of the snaps, so you're going to get burned at times, but still 15 opportunities, had 74 yards and a touchdown. He's a big-time playmaker with big-time opportunities. So those are the guys I'd be looking to if I needed to. But that's going to do it for me. Be sure to throw your comments. I will come back and answer those. Subscribe to the Face Off Sports Network if you haven't already. You can go follow me at the FF Mediators on X. And, of course, hit the link. You can check out our Patreon. The Discord is free, answering questions all the time. As always, I appreciate your help, and we'll catch you in the next one.